Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a really powerful shift in how we think about leadership. It's about moving away from constantly just fixing problems and learning how to unlock the hidden potential that's already there in your organization. So, does this sound at all familiar? You spend your days just putting out fires, right? You solve one crisis, and then boom, two more pop up somewhere else. It feels like this endless game of leadership whack a mole, and let's be honest, it's totally exhausting. But what if the game itself is the real problem?
And here's the thing. Here's why it keeps happening. We're all trained to fix the individual parts we can see. A communication snag over here, a broken process over there. But when we do that, we're completely missing the bigger picture, all those invisible dynamics that are actually causing these problems to pop up in the first place.
Yeah, this constant focus on fixing individual pieces, it leads us straight into something we can call the problem-solving trap. And it's a way of thinking that even when we have the best intentions, just keeps us stuck playing defense, always reacting instead of leading. Okay, now this slide makes such a brilliant point. Most of the time, we're not really thinking about our problems. We're just thoughting, you know? We're just hitting replay on old solutions, old experiences, and kind of hoping they'll magically work on brand new, complex challenges. It's our accidental default mode. Real thinking, that's intentional. It's the act of generating a genuinely new idea that actually meets the moment. So, how do we get out of that thinking trap and start to truly think? Well, it all starts with a huge shift in perspective. We have to stop seeing our organizations like they're machines that need to be fixed and start seeing them for what they are, living systems.
And you can see the difference right here. The old mechanical view, it sees an organization as just a collection of parts. When something goes wrong, the immediate question is, okay, what's broken? But this new view, it sees a living system, this whole web of relationships, and it asks a much, much more powerful question. What is trying to emerge here?
This quote just nails it. You could study every single organ in the human body, right? But if you don't get metabolism, the flow of energy, the relationships between all those organs, you'll never understand how life actually works. It's the exact same thing for our organizations. But look, if we're going to start seeing these living systems, we're going to need some new tools. And I'm not talking about rigid models that spit out easy answers. We need something more like instruments for thinking. So, what are these instruments really? Well, they're basically frameworks, and they're designed specifically to help us map out the invisible stuff. They let us see all those interconnected relationships and complex dynamics that are always humming along just beneath the surface. Now, when you see diagrams like these, don't get hung up on the details of the squiggly lines. They're not meant to be static charts you have to memorize. Think of them more like special lenses, instruments designed to help us actually perceive the unseen forces, like motivation, and direction, and tension that are constantly shaping how a system behaves. And the practical benefits of this? They're huge. Using these instruments helps you see the whole system even while you're focused on one specific part. You learn how to read where the organization is in its own development, to make sense of all the complexity, and to finally get out of that whack-a-mole game. And what's really crucial is they create a shared language, so people from marketing and engineering and finance can actually have a real conversation about the same core challenge. So what do these instruments help us see? Well, for one, they reveal this pattern of growth, a kind of journey that every living system goes on. And this journey moves through three pretty distinct levels of capacity. So the journey starts with vitality. That's just the basic energy to hold together as a whole. From there, a system can develop viability, which is the capacity to adapt, to thrive, and to sustain itself. But the ultimate goal, the top level, is evolution, the power not just to respond to the future, but to actually help create it. All right, so let's make this real. A perfect example of a lack of vitality is a leadership team that just falls apart when the CEO is out of the room. They can't make decisions, they can't align. This shows the system doesn't have the basic internal energy to hold itself together. It lacks vitality. Okay, next up is viability. Think about a company that had one great product, and now its only strategy for growth is to just keep copying that same old formula. What happens when the market inevitably shifts? They can't adapt. They lack the capacity to regenerate their approach, which means they aren't really viable for the long haul. And then finally, we have evolution. This is the level where an organization is so in tune with its environment that it actually starts to shape the entire industry.
It's not just playing the game anymore, it's changing the rules of the game for everybody. That is true co-creative capacity. So we have a new perspective, the living system. And we have these cool instruments to see it. But there's a missing piece. There's one critical component that makes it all work, and that's the mind of the person who's actually using the tools.
I absolutely love this quote. It's just so direct. Powerful frameworks become useless lists without the right consciousness to use them. In other words, if you don't bring the right mindset, the right awareness to the process, even the best tool in the world becomes just another checklist.
So the whole point here is this. The goal isn't just to memorize the frameworks, it's to develop the mental capacity to actually use them properly. Without that, we risk taking this dynamic, living instrument that's designed to reveal complexity and turning it into another rigid, static checklist. And then we fall right back into that old machine world view.
So let's bring this all together. What does this new way of leading actually look and feel like? Well, it fundamentally changes the kinds of questions you ask. And because of that, it changes the things you're able to see. I mean, just look at the difference here. Instead of jumping to a surface-level problem like communication, you start asking these deeper, more systemic questions. You see the communication issue as a symptom, and you start to ask, okay, what capability is missing underneath all this? Is this a vitality problem where we just can't stay coherent? Or is it a viability problem where we can't adapt our communication to new situations? This right here, this is the ultimate shift. You stop seeing a world that's just full of problems that need to be solved, and instead you start to see the inherent potential that is trying to bubble up, trying to emerge in the system. Your job as a leader is no longer to be the chief problem solver, it's to be the person who enables that potential to finally be realized. And that leaves us with this final question to think about. We put so much pressure on leaders to have all the answers, but what if the true superpower of leadership isn't knowing what to do, but developing the ability to truly see and read the system that's right in front of you?